Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Kaga, and we'll finish off this week with some World of Warships gameplay as previously announced on the channel. So, what do we have here for today? It's most definitely not the Japanese ships that you have come to become accustomed to on the channel. It's most definitely not any of the Kriegsmarine Schiffe like the Tirpitz that has also been quite popular on the channel. And it's most certainly not anything Russian that you've seen splattered across YouTube and more recently on a video of mine featuring a certain Tashkent. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a US carrier. But it's not just any US carrier. Well, what we have here is an Essex. And you know what? I happen to like the actual Essex class ships. There's a one not terribly far from where I live that I've gone to a few times, and it's quite a nice little ship. But it doesn't look anything like the one in World of Warships, but that's due to several decades of retrofits, including some very important ones that made it capable of launching jet aircraft. And right now, speaking of the aircraft, I happen to notice all the upgraded planes on the Essex all feature that kind of bent wing design that was so famous on the Corsair. And to a lesser extent, some of the Japanese aircraft of World War II also featured this. Some of the Hankel designs featured this as well, but a little bit less about them. It's just kind of interesting that Wargaming would pick the Essex aircraft after they tweaked everything in 0.5.3 when they decided to re-envision how the US carriers would look. In particular, when they decided to change the line progression to make up for the fact that they were removing some top-tier aircraft from the Tier 10 CVs with the absence of the jets. It's kind of weird that they would give them all, at least on the Essex, all of them have the bent wing design. I don't suppose it's because people were getting a little bent out of shape about this whole thing, huh? Yeah, sorry about that. I couldn't help myself. And damn, what was that North Carolina thinking? Let's go full stop when there are aircraft carriers in play. Damn. Anyone feel like Ride of the Valkyries is in order right now? Da, 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 da. Anyone else have that like great piece of music from Wagner just playing or perhaps coursing through their heads right at that moment? Oh, truly such a great piece of music. And you know what? I'm pretty certain we're gonna have that battleship. We're gonna have ourselves that battleship. Yep, we got ourselves that battleship. Oh yes, and by the way, the one captaining the Essex for us today is Woe Q, or Woe 9, if you're more familiar with that pronunciation, who has been featured on this channel a few times before. And you know what? I don't think this will be the last that we see of this person. And for a pretty good reason. One, in terms of, some good battleship play, very solid. I don't have the very popular battleships yet, so I have to defer when other people do it. Or when they have great games in them, I'll defer to them. They're the experts. They have the ships. I don't. Why be picky? And two, in terms of aircraft carriers, well, my US collection stops firmly at the Independence because, well, I'll be honest, I am stockpiling free experience to skip the Ranger, to skip the Lexington. to stop straight at the Essex, where the line is a little bit more forgiving, but it's also the part in the line that features some of the most extensive changes and reworks from the null 0.5.3 update. And, well, of course, what do I mean? Before that update, the Essex featured the ubiquitous, and I must say ubiquitous because pretty much 95% of the Essex drivers out there use this loadout. After they got past the stock loadout, it was the 1 fighter, 2 torpedo bombers, and 2 dive bombers loadout. This constituted the strike loadout. There was also the stock loadout, which had the 2 fighters, the 1 torpedo bomber, and 2 dive bombers. And now there was also the air superiority loadout, which had 3 fighters and 2 dive bombers. I don't think that one changed, to my knowledge. But the stock loadout had changed. I believe it's now 2 fighters, 1 torpedo bomber, and 1 dive bomber. And whoa, those shells got close to shooting down our planes. Too bad they don't do that. I know, right? I know, right? A little more realism, please. But in respect to that strike loadout, the 122 as it's sometimes called, it got replaced with this one, the 1 fighter, 1 torpedo bomber squadron, and 3 dive bomber squadrons. So let's think about this for a second. The torpedo bombers squadrons, they have your nominal expected damage per strike, somewhere around 54,000 with the US carriers. You know, ordinarily you'd be sitting there going, why would you want an extra dive bomber squadron? Well, with that last major update, the US carriers, well, the high tier ones, starting I believe with the Lexington, gain access to 1,000-pound bombs instead of the previous 500. And along with that came a increase in the maximum damage per bomb. That's right, I'm saying this, maximum damage per bomb. This is not damage per flight. The theoretical maximum damage per bomb was increased to just a little north of 10,000. If you think about that for a second, assuming that all of those were to penetrate, and you know they won't, but let's just assume for a second that they do, those 3 dive bomber squadrons, just completely stock, represent around 180,000 maximum damage. And if you're running the air superiority perk, that 5-point captain skill, which will give you 1 fighter and 1 extra dive bomber per squadron, you suddenly go, there's now a potential damage of 210,000 per strike. Whoa, that is huge. You know, granted, you might see about 10% of this as your, I guess you might consider it your lowball number on that, with 1/5 being a more average number due to armor mitigation. That's still a lot. Holy crap. I mean, can you imagine getting pelted by, like, I don't know, what would be equivalent to this? That might be a good example. You take half a dozen Iowas, have them point their bows at somebody, and just unload 1 salvo of HE. That would be about right. Damn, that's a lot of potential damage. And now for a public service announcement. Destroyer captains, don't fence yourself in. Don't be this guy who only has one way he can turn. Don't be this guy who doesn't think that somebody can do this little neat trick here. Don't be that guy. Because you sit back and go, really? Ow. Two. Boom. He was full health. And he's done. So, damn. Those shells get close. And, you know, this was just one of those things where I really do miss the days from the closed beta test with the sheer number of aircraft carriers that you'd find in a match. I've heard that the numbers are back now that people are getting a little sick of destroyer gameplay. I don't know. I happen to have a fairly long break around like the introduction of 0.5.3.2 and took a short break from the game just to enjoy other games. I know, right? We're not allowed to take breaks around here, apparently. But anyway, when I look at the this type of, you have two carriers, it means that there's plenty of room for everyone to get a little bit of AA kills in, and your AA armaments are not completely paperweights. Thus far, I have agreed 100% with the way Wolkyu-san has played the match up until this moment. And now this is just one of those subtle things where I would never pass up an easier target to hit an aircraft carrier just because it's an aircraft carrier. I understand you're running low on fighters. I understand that. But there's an unescorted battleship that is threatening the people in the cap that we're trying to capture. Really? That's the only thing that has made me go, please, no, turn those bombers. No, you did it. But other than that, this is absolutely fantastic. And I do agree with the decision that WoW has been making throughout this game. I just would have prioritized helping my allies out a little bit more directly rather than that. And I must stress that by no means does that mean that this is bad gameplay or that in any way, shape, or form that wasn't a good decision for the team. It's just I would have chosen something different. Because while this guy in yet another North Carolina we're perfectly capable of dealing with him in theory with these torpedo bombers. Perhaps we could have done a little bit more earlier and helped our allies out. Now we're down to 5. And 4. So it looks like we got 4 torpedoes in the water. That's maximum 36,000 damage or so. Yep. We pick up about 29,000. Not quite enough, but he's flooding. That can count for something. And that flood is why it's just one of those, the earlier dive bomber strike is not wasted on the other target, but I'm not sure. It's just one of those, I would have played it differently, I guess, is a better way to look at it, because we go ahead and WoW picks up the kill thanks to the floods on the enemy North Carolina. And we can see, or we saw the enemy Shokaku just north of the enemy Essex, who's hiding in that little cubby hole down there. While it's true that those nice little narrows are great bastions to hide from aerial torpedo attacks, they make yourself a great target for dive bombers. And that's just one of those things that I know that some people will tell you that you go ahead, you park yourself into one of those narrows, especially if like you're on the opposite side, you spawn down in the southern part of like the islands of ice map. You have a couple places that the northern spawn just doesn't have. There's that great little hole in E2. There are the places that you see the enemy aircraft carriers occupying in the south. Realistically, the north has one. So you just don't have that option in the north. But you know what? That's a little consequence, because I've often found that when it comes to being able to service targets faster, servicing more targets overall, I don't like hiding. And now maybe that's the habit I have from playing the Japanese carriers, but I prefer to use the maneuverability of my ship to get a tactically sound position just behind the front if possible. And damn, that's a lot of damage. You know, that's the part where I'm sitting back going, the Essex had an armored flight deck. It should be able to resist high explosive. I mean, with exception to the elevators. But that many bomb hits right through the elevator? I doubt it. Battleships would love that RNG. They really would love it, especially the US ones. Because, yeah, they do need some love in the RNG department. I don't know how to implement that in a balanced way against their competitors, but they do need something. They really do need something. And this part is still just breaks my mind that Wargaming still hasn't fixed that with the AA is a projectile. Why is it going through large bodies of mass? And did I just see Woe's torpedo bombers go straight through that iceberg? Wargaming, please, Wargaming, can you fix that? That is very, very, very jarring. One of those things I just highlighted has gameplay implications, and the other one is just, no. You give the forum trolls ammunition to use against you. Squash it ahead of time, please. For all of our sanity, please do it. And now we're coming up on the end of this match. I know it feels weird that it's already been about 19 minutes at this point, but it really has. I know most of you are sitting there going, oh my god, it was an interesting carrier replay. Oh my god, such a thing exists? And right now, we zoomed in over our friendly Benson just to see what was going on, because all of those planes were still up. I didn't think that they had been out of contact with their carrier long enough to have them fall into the ocean. Oh, hey, Woe has been spotted. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, there it is. Enemy fighters are up. They're moving in this direction, maybe on a last order, or maybe on an engagement order, who knows, but Woe's AA spec Essex just chews them up and says, seconds please. And now we can see that with less than 30 seconds on the clock, that those bombers are never going to hit their targets. Well, they might hit their targets if there was a wormhole, but those don't exist in game, at least not to my knowledge. So we'll just go ahead and say, yeah, no, not gonna happen. End of game, and it was a good game too. Really good game. Unfortunately, I don't have the result screens for that match. Kind of a sad face on that one, but you can kind of get a guesstimate that that's north of 100,000 somewhere. It's a good match in any given ship, really. The fact that this is in an aircraft carrier that people were worried as all hell that it would be nerfed to uselessness or mediocrity. Well, I guess it says that y'all were wrong. And it still gets its love. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please consider giving it a like down below. If you're new to the channel, please consider sticking around by hitting the old subscribe button. I hope to see you around in the near future. Content to come next week is a little bit more emphasis on the World of Warships content, and of course, a little bit of World of Tanks, and the return of War Thunder Wednesdays. I have some really nice Tank RB segments for you all. I hope you look forward to that. And lastly, I'd like to bid you to have a wonderful weekend. I know that I'm going to try to, so please make it a point to sit back, relax, and enjoy your weekend. And of course, good luck playing whatever you're playing. So thank you, and have a good weekend.